In the British prison system, there are prisoners feared by inmates and guards alike. Then there are men whose names whisper through cell blocks like warnings carved in stone. Gary Vint is one of them. At 6'6", he is physically imposing. But his true weapon was never his size. It was something far more dangerous: the ability to mask violence behind the facade of a compliant man. A man who could convince authorities he was reformed, only to kill again the moment he was released. He is one of the very few prisoners ever released on a life sentence only to murder again. A second killing that shattered the illusion of rehabilitation and locked him away forever. What followed was a cascade of violence, broken men, and the unraveling of a psychological mystery that still haunts the British prison system. His story is not one of chaos or madness. It is something far more unsettling. A man who understood the system better than the system understood him. Section 1. The Ordinary Man. To understand how a railway worker became one of the deadliest men in British prisons, we must return to Teesside, England in 1995, before Gary Vint became a name synonymous with calculated violence. He was known for something far more ordinary: work. Vint left school at 16 and entered railway employment. In the mid-1990s, Teesside was a dying industrial town where work still defined identity. Heavy industry had collapsed, but the railway remained. It was stability. It was control. Colleagues described Vint as diligent, meticulous, a man obsessed with procedure and safety. He was a stickler for rules, the kind of worker who reported violations without hesitation. Nothing about his early life suggested he would become notorious. No criminal past, no violent reputation. Just a man who valued order and expected others to respect it. That order, however, had limits. Section 2. The First Murder. On a summer night in 1995, Vint was working as a railway signalman. So was Carl Edon, a 22-year-old freight worker. The court later heard that Edon had taken a shortcut across the tracks, a breach of safety regulations. For most workers, it would have been nothing, a moment overlooked. For Vint, it was a violation. What began as a confrontation escalated into something that shocked even seasoned police officers. Inside the signal box, Vint attacked Edon with a broom handle, snapping it with the force of his blows. He then armed himself with kitchen knives and continued the assault. Carl Edon was stabbed 13 times. The ferocity was not a loss of temper. It was calculated, sustained. When police arrived, Vint was standing nearby, covered in blood. He had not fled. He had not panicked. He calmly drove to the police station and said, "I just killed somebody." When questioned, Vint said something that would define his entire case. He told police he could not explain why, that the victim had done nothing to him, that he did not remember forming the intention to kill. But the victim's family remembered everything. Carl Edon was 22 years old. He was killed at work. He died because he took a shortcut across train tracks, something a man claimed was unforgivable. The court did not accept diminished responsibility. Vint was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. At that point, the story should have ended. It did not. Section 3. The perfect prisoner. Inside prison, something unexpected happened. Vint did not spiral. He did not become violent. He did not attract attention. Instead, he adapted. Prison records describe a man who complied with the regime. He followed rules. He engaged with the system. He caused no significant problems. The same obsession with order that had defined his working life now reasserted itself behind bars. He completed courses. He cooperated with assessments. He said the right things to the right people at the right time. Crucially, there was no repeat of violence. Psychological reports softened. Risk assessments improved. The killing of Carl Edon was increasingly framed as an isolated event. A man who had snapped under specific circumstances. That no longer existed. After 9 years, prison authorities reached a conclusion. Gary Vint was suitable for release. To the system, it was a success. Evidence that even the most serious offenders could be rehabilitated and safely returned to society. To one family, it was the beginning of a nightmare. Section 4. The mask slips. Vint was released in 2005 under license. On paper, everything appeared stable. He lived with his mother. He met a woman. He married her. They formed a household with her 4 children. To those assessing him, this looked like progress. But away from official reports, a different reality emerged. Friends and family members spoke of injuries they had seen, of arguments, of behavior that unsettled them, of domestic violence. But none of it triggered intervention from the authorities monitoring him. In December 2006, Vint was involved in a fight at a public house. His license was revoked. He was returned to custody. Once again, the pattern repeated. Inside prison, he was compliant, cooperative, described as a model prisoner. Within a year, favorable reports led to his release a second time. Section 5. The second murder. On February 10, 2008, Vint's wife went out with friends in Middlesbrough. More than once, she and her friends fled the pubs they were in because they realized Vint was there. The court would later conclude he was deliberately following her. He waited outside a pub where her daughter was working. An argument broke out. Vint warned off staff who tried to intervene. He ordered his wife into a car and, when her daughter tried to protect her, he forcibly removed her and dumped her on the pavement. He accused his wife of infidelity and drove her to his mother's house. Police arrived to check on her welfare. Vint assured them she was safe. They believed him. Later that night, he killed her. Using her phone, Vint called the police himself. He said he wanted to report a murder. He gave his own name and his mother's address. When officers arrived, he was covered in blood. The post-mortem found evidence of attempted strangulation and multiple stab wounds to the chest. One blade had pierced her heart. The cause of death was internal bleeding. 2 knives were recovered. 1 blade was broken. Vint admitted full responsibility. The Court of Appeal would later describe the sequence as deliberate, sustained, and marked by calculated attempts to mislead police and prevent intervention. This was not an isolated eruption. It was a confirmation of what had always existed beneath the surface. Vint pleaded guilty and received a whole life order. Section 6. The Predator Unleashed. After his second murder conviction, Vint entered the high-security estate as a whole-life prisoner. Inside the most secure units, something changed. He was no longer performing compliance. He was no longer fighting to prove he could be controlled. He had nothing left to lose. And that is when the true violence began. According to those imprisoned alongside him, Vint became a predator for hire. Men would pay him in drugs to assault or injure other inmates. He was a tool for hire, a weapon for those who needed violence done. One of the clearest examples came at HMP Wakefield, which houses some of the most reviled offenders in the British system, men convicted of serious crimes against children. Most prisoners refuse association with such men. Some request segregation. Others seek immediate transfer. Vint took a different approach. He agreed to be placed on the same wing as Roy Whiting, a man imprisoned for horrific crimes. What happened next was meticulously planned. Using a toilet brush, Vint fashioned a weapon, a jagged, sharpened edge designed to inflict maximum damage. He waited until the morning, unlocking for breakfast. Then he entered Whiting's cell. What followed was a sustained attempt to kill the man. Vint took out one of Whiting's eyes. It was not a moment of rage. It was execution. Section 7. The Unchangeable Man. By 2014, Vint was being held within the closed supervision center system, reserved for the most dangerous prisoners in the country. Prison records assessed him as high risk of harm to other inmates. In the exercise yard at HMP Woodhill, Vint attacked another whole-life prisoner, Newell. The assault was sudden and sustained. Newell suffered devastating injuries, brain damage, and the loss of sight in one eye. The High Court would later find that the risk Vint posed was real, immediate, and known. That he had been increasingly frustrated by delays to his transfer, and that violence was the tool he had learned would get him what he wanted. The pattern had become undeniable. When order existed, Vint could comply. When control slipped, he enforced it. When the system resisted, he escalated. Section 8. The Psychological Puzzle. What makes Gary Vint's case so disturbing is not that he is violent. It is that he is selective about his violence. He is not constantly volatile. He does not suffer from obvious mental illness. He does not fit the profile of the typical dangerous offender. Instead, he is something far more difficult to manage. A man who can appear reformed, appear controlled, appear safe, until the moment he feels disrespected or denied what he believes he is entitled to. In those moments, compliance collapses instantly into extreme violence. He is not driven by rage or passion. He is driven by the enforcement of order, by the reassertion of control, by the punishment of those who violate what he believes are non-negotiable rules, the railway shortcut, the perceived infidelity, the delayed transfer. Each violation of the order he demanded resulted in calculated violence. This is what makes men like Vint so dangerous to institutional systems. They cannot be managed through rehabilitation because they do not believe they need it. They cannot be incentivized through progression because they feel entitled to it without earning it. They can only be contained. Conclusion. Gary Vint remains in the closed supervision center system. he will likely never be released again. He is one of a small number of men for whom the prison system offers no solution beyond containment. Not because time will soften him, not because treatment will reach him, but because every environment he enters eventually escalates to violence. The story of Gary Vint is not a story about chaos or madness. It is a story about the danger that exists when a man learns to weaponize order itself, when he understands that compliance is a tool, when he realizes that the system designed to contain him can be deceived by someone who knows exactly what it wants to see. It is a story about the price of that deception, paid in blood by those who could not escape it. And it is a warning about men who can appear reformed while remaining, at their core, fundamentally dangerous. His wife will never be released from that night. Carl Edon will never work another day. Roy Whiting's eye will never be restored. Lee Newell will remain blind. And Gary Vint will remain behind bars, not as a failure of rehabilitation, but as its most important truth. Some men cannot be changed. They can only be stopped. If you found this exploration of true crime, psychology, and institutional failure fascinating, please subscribe for more investigations into the darkest corners of the criminal justice system. We will continue to explore cases that reveal uncomfortable truths about human nature, prison systems, and the men who challenge everything we believe about rehabilitation. Our condolences to all victims and their families,